Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the next part of our Pathways to Prosperity webinar series hosted by Vanguard Communications. Our webinar today, titled 5 Ways to Make Your Practice Less Hackable, will be presented by one of the most important people here at Vanguard, our technical director, Jonathan Stanley. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to chat them in the sidebar to the left of your screen, and we will try to address them during the Q&A part of our webinar. We will also have an ongoing Twitter feed with the hashtag #PathwaysByVanguard if you would like to join the conversation. So I would like to introduce Jonathan Stanley, who is a graduate of the University of Texas in Austin and a self-proclaimed tech geek. He has a wide array of experience in web development and has won several awards for his work online, including the Golden Web Award. Jonathan has been the leader of our online security efforts here at Vanguard and has helped keep us at the forefront of internet technology. He has invaluable knowledge when it comes to keeping medical practices safe online and offline, so we are very excited to have him speak today. So without further ado, the stage is all yours, Jonathan.
Thank you, Kayla. So security, information security comes up all the time with medical practices. It's one of the things I hear doctors have the biggest concerns about. And as I see everyone sort of deal with the challenges of security, I get a little bit of some interesting results. And I was able to scour the internet to find an image of something that pretty much approximates what I see when I see a lot of different practices with their security. And it looks something like that. Complete absence of security in almost every place except for one place that just has an absurd amount of security. So what I like to do is actually focus on the fundamentals, and that might sound basic for some, but you actually should get a lot out of it, whether you're new to security or whether you have a long history of security. The fundamentals are good for everyone. So let's get started. The first thing that everyone needs to know in healthcare is what PHI is. Protected health information is any information that associates an individual with his or her health. So as soon as you connect a health record or anything related to health to an individual, you have created PHI. And this can be some unusual things. So for example, Jane Doe as a patient of Dr. Smith, that's PHI. Our cancer clinic received a phone call from some phone number. So simply having a phone log of phone calls from different phone numbers is enough to identify someone. That's PHI. You're associating that phone number with a cancer clinic, that is PHI. A patient sends you a wonderful thank you note and you post it on your Facebook page without getting their permission. You have just violated PHI requirements because you are identifying a patient with a particular medical practice. So a lot of things that you might not expect could be PHI, a lot of them are. So again, in its simplest form, PHI is anything that happens as soon as you connect a health record with an individual. So PHI is actually a little bit like work for hire in the sense that a lot of doctors are the ones that may be creating it, but they're not the ones that own it. The patient is ultimately the one that, quote unquote, owns the PHI. So without a written waiver from the patient, the practice must protect the PHI. And there's a lot of reason for that, and probably the most important that doctors and practices will care about is that failure to protect PHI results in huge negative publicity, lots of legal and other costs, and some massive fines. So a 2015 study showed that the median cost of healthcare breaches was about $75,000, and the average cost shoots up to $675,000. It's a tremendous cost, and that doesn't even count some of the other costs that are incurred in relation to that. But that's a pretty big cost to risk. So that's why it's one of the strongest topics that we see in regards to healthcare. So again, make sure that it's not just the administration that needs to know what PHI is. Every single team member in a practice and that's working with a practice needs to know what PHI is. And this is a good way to start, is the basics with that. So now that you know what PHI is, your next step is to get everyone using strong passwords. So the majority, and by majority I don't mean just 50 or 51%, the vast majority of passwords can be cracked in a matter of seconds or days by a common computer. They're very, very weak. Many password crackers can do thousands or hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of guesses per second. So it's very quick to break a weak password. So there's some do's and don'ts with passwords. The don'ts: don't use short passwords. Don't use words like things that be found in a dictionary, or common names, or birthdays, or any sort of sequences. For example, if you mash your hands on the keyboard and hit the letters side by side, they might come out in a certain sequence, like QWERTY. Obviously, you don't want to write down your passwords anyway. You have to be able to remember your password without writing it down or storing it anywhere. So what you do want to do is you do want to have long passwords. And by long passwords, a minimum of 12 characters, but you should always strive to do as many characters as you can reasonably remember. So some websites will limit you to a certain number of characters, but try to get as many characters as you can. Some of my passwords are 30 plus characters, so try to get them as long as you can. Try to use as many numbers, special characters, and varying case with your letters, so capitals and lowercase. And this really makes your password a lot more complex for the same number of characters. So you get a lot stronger password even though it's only 12 characters. And one that is often not done, this is probably the biggest struggle, is to use a unique password for every single website and service. So especially when you see people using their email password as their computer password, is their health password, you don't want to share the password with all the different systems. They need to be unique. Ultimately, what you want your password to look like is something like this password here at the end. Capital H, exclamation mark, capital D, comma, lowercase a, capital I. It is a complete hodgepodge of letters, numbers, and different characters. So you're probably thinking to yourself at a certain point, there's no way I'm going to be able to remember a password like that. That is way too complex. Well, actually, you might surprise yourself. That password is actually just a sentence. The sentence is, "Hi, I'm Doug, and I'm a 35-year-old. Do you want to dance?" Take the first letter of each of those words, smush them together, and you get that password. You keep the punctuation in place, keep the numbers in place, and you get all these different letters, numbers, characters into a single concise password, and you can easily remember that phrase, "Hi, I'm Doug, I'm a 35-year-old. Very easy to remember, very complex. It gives you a pretty good way to remember passwords. So just try to think of some phrase that you might remember and use that to create a password. Obviously not like the Star Spangled Banner or something common, but try to do something a little bit special for you. But even if you have that really nice password like that, now you're thinking, okay, well, I got that nice password, but now how am I going to possibly remember my password with all these different websites and services that I log into? Well, there's actually a really great solution, and that is using a password manager. Once you start using a passwords manager, you only have to remember a couple passwords. Every other password with every other website and every other service can be completely random. So now that I personally use a password manager, I never type my passwords. I have no idea what my Google password is. I have no idea what my Facebook password is. I have no idea what almost all of my passwords are. They are all completely random gibberish. So the way that works is there's actually two major companies doing this, but there's probably a few dozen pretty popular services that have some really nice password managers. But LastPass and 1Password are two very popular ones. They're both excellent tools. I'm not as familiar with 1Password, but I've definitely had a lot of experience with LastPass, and I've reviewed them to make sure that they're as secure as you reasonably can get. So modern password managers, they utilize what's known as client-side encryption. And what that does is it creates what's called a zero knowledge cloud. So that's a lot of dense language, but what it means is it's giving business users the highest possible level of security for sensitive data and files. So if you use something like LastPass or 1Password, you're getting the highest possible level of security for sensitive data and files, and that's what you want. Now, this can change as things move forward, but as it stands now, this is a really great tool. It'll save you time, it'll save you effort, it'll make your overall security picture look much, much stronger than they do today, because every single website can be unique and they can all have really, really strong passwords. That's going to be a huge bump up. Now, if one of your websites that you log into is ever hacked, you have no risk. You just change that password and none of your other websites or services are possibly compromised.